Welcome to Success from Scratch, your place for innovation, creativity, and the blueprint of success from peak performers just like you. Welcome to Success from Scratch, episode number 47, and my special guest, Lara Pavanelli from our Austin, Texas market. Lara, welcome.
Thank you.
You know, I'm so excited to hear your story. And, I know this year you produced $6 million helping people either buy, sell, or invest in real estate. We'll talk about that in a minute. But tell us a little bit about your background. I know you have an international background and a lot of rich history.
I do. I was born in Italy, and I was raised in Italy, England, and France. And I moved to the U.S. I've been here 30 years, and I've lived in California and San Francisco. And then I worked and lived in the Caribbean for a while, and Southeast Alaska. And now I've been in Austin for 6 years.
Austin's an amazing city, don't you love it?
Yes, it's great. We love it.
Well, I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you're with JPAR. So I know you did $6 million this year, and one of the books I love is Pleased But Not Satisfied. And I think you described to me as we were preparing for today's interview that you're, pleased with $6 million, but your goal is to double that this year.
Correct.
So let's unpack how you're going to double that. Right now, your business is coming a lot from networking. And you're a member of a group, your happy hour events that you've been doing for 5 years. How did that develop, and how long did it take for you before you even got leads out of working your happy hour events?
So I work under the premise that if I'm going to be doing something socially, I want it to be fun. So I primarily do what interests me. And of course, hoping to meet people in the process who will also want to do business with me. So I am an international person. I've done a lot of traveling through my life, and traveling is still on very high priority on my agenda. I go on several trips a year, and I try to go somewhere new every year. So it's very exciting. And I like to promote the international community in Austin, which is growing. Very rapidly. It has grown a lot just over the last 5 years. A lot of people are coming from all over the world. And to me, that's very exciting. And I love to meet people from, all different walks of life and all different parts of the world. So that was the initial intent. It took me about 2 years at first of organizing events before I actually got any business out of it. My focus, again, at the time was to grow the group. So it initially was about a dozen people, and I grew the group to about 100. We have about 100 people showing up at every event now.
Is that a monthly event?
It's a monthly event, and it's not always the same people who show up. That's the beauty of it. So there's always new people. And I work as the ambassador of the group. So when they come, sometimes they're a little bit shy. They don't know people. So it's my job to welcome them, maybe introduce them to some people, kind of make them feel at ease. And then I let them, go and network with the rest of the people of the group.
Nurturing that for 2 years had to be tough because, granted, it was fun. It was part of your hobby, but also wanting to start to generate some business from it naturally. Did that 2 years, did you ever doubt yourself? Did you think, okay, maybe this is just my hobby and that's my interest and I do it for that, but no business is ever going to come from this? Did you ever want to give up on the business part?
No.
Good.
No, because that's not my primary reason for doing it. My primary reason is, so I come from a hospitality industry. I was in the hospitality industry for 20 years prior to getting into real estate. And I like to do that. I like to be hospitable to people. So when they first come to Austin and they come through this group, I always tell them, welcome to Austin, welcome to Texas. And we just get started with the conversation that way. And I think it's, again, I just did it mostly for fun and to meet new people. You have to remember, I moved to Austin 6 years ago. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know any of the neighborhoods. I didn't know where I was going. I still use a GPS even today.
Well, I think we all do today. It's kind of like a requirement.
Right. But mostly I didn't know people. And so that was my primary goal, was to meet people. The more I feel that the more people you meet, the more people contacts you put into your CRM, and the more successful you'll be. So my new goal, for example, in 2019 is to meet 500 people. That's my goal, which means if you narrow it down to, let's say, 5 days a week, it's almost 2 new people a day. And so that's my goal. And I want to put all of them into my CRM.
And do you have a specific strategy of how the follow-up plan, once you meet those new people, what's going to happen over the next 8 weeks?
Yes. It's phone calls, it's emails, potentially meeting for coffee, talking about how sometimes I meet people that are in related industries. So we talk about how can we help each other? Is there a way that we can refer people to each other? Basically, my real strategy is to get to know people, because through these relationships is how you develop business and more contacts.
So awesome. So the happy hour event, which we kind of call as an influence strategy, tell us, let's go into some of the control strategies. I know you're using some of the lead generation from JPAR, you're doing some open houses, and you're doing some farming in addition to your networking groups. Talk to us a little bit about that.
About what, sorry? The
lead generation.
The lead generation.
Houses, what I would call the more control strategies that are more, your network is what we call an influence strategies. What about the more predictable strategies of open houses, online leads through OpCity, or your farming?
So I do believe in doing open houses at certain times of the year. I don't do them year round, simply because by the time we get to late spring, summer, I believe when people come to an open house, they always tell you they already have an agent. So this time of the year, the fall and the winter, is a great time to do open houses. People are just wandering around. They're just, we're thinking about buying a house, and they don't have an agent yet. So it's a great way to meet people. Also, if you are a people person like I am, and you have a great contact in person, then of course an open house is a great strategy. If you're a little bit more of an introvert, it might be a little harder, but yeah,
I'd love to expose you to our mega open house strategy, which I think has a little bit more potential for you as you look to double your business. Tell us about your farming and your online leads through OpCity.
The farming, I do work everywhere. I don't really limit myself to a certain area, but it makes sense to be closer to home. I would be able to do more business, and because I would spend less time in the car. So that's kind of how I thought about it at first. There's a neighborhood right next to me called Balcones, and I basically joined the country club. I now have an ad that goes out every month in the local magazine, neighborhood magazine. And I participate in events. I've also joined through the country club. I've joined the women's group as well as a business-to-business networking group. And I haven't gotten any business yet, but I haven't been a member for not even for a year yet. So all of these types of efforts require time. You have to put the time in it. So, but I do believe it's going to pay off. I organize quarterly events. I've already done one. I'm about to do another one here on January 19th. It's a breakfast. I invite people to come, and I did an economic forecast for the first one, where I took a presentation that was done by a famous economist, and I basically ran through the economy, the forecast for the following year, and it talks about what's going on in Texas and specifically in Austin, and what people can expect price-wise. And then I discussed real estate. I got my preferred lender, preferred insurance agent to come and participate with me. So they did a little spiel as well. It was very successful. We had a successful event, and I really am looking forward to the one in January. This one, we're doing something different. I have my preferred stager / interior designer who's coming to do a presentation about the current trends. And I'm trying to also get a general contractor on board who can also discuss what is the best approach for, or best return, best ROI for people doing renovations in their homes. This particular neighborhood, the homes go anywhere from 500 to $1 million. And essentially the price difference depends on, if they've been renovated or not. It's an older neighborhood. It was built in the 70s. It's on a golf course. Right. Beautifully custom built homes. They were beautifully built back then, but of course most of them do need to be renovated. So
I love this because you're really adding value in terms of what it takes to maximize the value of the neighborhood and providing them the resources. You in a sense are becoming the hub for the neighborhood of how to best improve if they're going to invest $1, where to get the biggest bang for their buck. I love it.
Exactly, and I like to be the go-to person, and so becoming the specialist in any given neighborhood, I believe that's what it requires. And like you said, adding value and showing that that we're willing to give, something so that people are getting something out of it.
Yeah, the hyper local expert. Okay, so we've talked about your networking events, your open house approach, and your farming approach. Tell us a little bit about online leads and your OpCity through JPAR.
So I really haven't been getting leads for the last 3 years. So I'm actually looking forward to also grow my business with leads. And I've just started getting OpCity leads, and which I used to get back in the day 4 years ago. And so I'm really excited about that. And I have 4 leads at the moment that I'm working with that I really think are going to pan out. So that's very exciting.
And I know you're using the LP Mama script to appropriately script through those, and those are converting for you. Well, one of the things we talked about in our prep for this interview is you believe that building your business so it can sustain any type of crisis, whether markets go up or down. Tell us a little bit about your approach in that regard.
So I was taught very early on by one of my early brokers that I asked them, I said, how come you're still producing this much even though we just came out of a crisis? This was in 2012. And he said, from 2008 to 2012, I still had a business. Many people got out of the business, but, some of us are still doing good, and we have been doing good all along. One of the approaches, of course, is to deal with investors. Investors will buy and sell no matter if there's a crisis or not. They're kind of on their own timeline, not so much on whatever the market is doing. So that's how I got into doing some investor business. But he taught me how to build a business from scratch organically. In other words, it's a little bit harder than doing leads, but it's building relationships, and it's looking at the big picture. I wanted a career. I don't want a job. I want a career. I want longevity in this business. And the only way to do that is to build very strong relationships, not only with people that can refer me business, people in the industry, but also with my clients. So, how do you build a relationship is spending a lot of time with them, is really caring about them and what they're trying to do, and staying in touch with them. So a lot of my clients, for example, have become friends. They're on my social media, and that's how you get referrals. And then of course you have to stay top of mind so that they think of you and they continue to be reminded that you're here. But that's how I built my business. So
that's awesome. I'm reminded of a blog article I wrote on jpar.net/blog called "A System Will Produce What a System Will Produce, Nothing Less, Nothing More." If you haven't checked that article out from the audience, head on over to jpar.net/blog and just type into the search bar system and read that article, A System Will Produce What a System Will Produce. And that's exactly what you're describing here is your system this year is going to produce a doubling of your business. And I'm so glad that you shared that with us today. So any last minute words of wisdom, advice, thoughts for our audience before we wrap up today's interview?
My last thoughts or advice I would say for other agents is just do a good job. Do a good job with every single transaction. Treat your clients like gold. And don't think about the money, whether they're doing a lease or buying or selling or maybe just referring someone to you. Treat them like gold because it'll pay off.
Back to the golden rule.
Yep.
Well, thank you Laura, so much for joining us today. I know the audience is going to pick up one, two, or more things from your experience, and we appreciate you sharing that with us. And we'll see you soon on another episode of Success from Scratch.